We Americans love control. We lock our doors with smart tech, buy insurance for our insurance, and we spend our lives preparing for the big bad things, stock market crashes, diseases, But here's the dark joke of the universe. Death almost never knocks on the door you're guarding. Instead, it sneaks in through the most ridiculously stupid back doors imaginable. It turns harmless, everyday objects into weapons of absolute finality. If these stories were pitched in a Hollywood writer's room, they'd be fired for being unrealistic. Today we are breaking down 9 of the most absurd, logic-defying ways people in the West have actually left this world. Stay until number 1, because it proves that even if you are surrounded by the ultimate survival experts, the universe can still turn your victory party into your funeral. Let's start with a sweet craving that turned into a literal tidal wave.
If you told a guy in 1919 that he was going to drown in the middle of a Boston street, he'd picture a heavy rainstorm.
He would never picture breakfast syrup. But on a warm January day, a massive industrial tank burst open, releasing 2.3 million gallons of molasses. This wasn't a slow ooze. It was a 15-foot-high tidal wave traveling at 35 miles per hour. It ripped buildings off their foundations and trapped people in a sticky, suffocating prison. The harder you fought, the deeper you sank. 21 people died, simply because a giant wave of sugar ran them over. It proves that the things we consume can easily consume us back. But while that was a tragedy of raw physics, our next story shows what happens when the machines we built to serve us just ignore we're there. We spend a lot of time on the internet worrying about AI taking over the world and starting a Terminator war. But the first time a robot actually took a human life, in 1979, at a Ford factory in Michigan. There was no evil AI matrix. There was just a cold metal arm. Robert Williams was just doing his job, climbing a storage rack to get some car parts. At the exact same time, a 1-ton mechanical arm was programmed to move parts in that exact space. The robot didn't have sensors to feel human flesh. It just swung, struck Robert in the head and kept working. It kept moving parts for 30 minutes while Robert lay there. The machine wasn't angry. It was just following code. That's the scary part about technology. It doesn't have to hate you to destroy you. But if you think machines are dangerous, wait until you see how nature handles a guy who brought a gun to a plant fight. In 1982, an Arizona man named David Grundman decided to have some redneck entertainment. He started shooting holes into giant saguaro cacti with his shotgun. Now, a saguaro cactus isn't a houseplant. These things can grow 50 feet tall and weigh tons. David fired his first shot at a small cactus, easy win. Then he leveled his gun at a massive 26-foot giant and blasted a huge chunk out of its base. But gravity is a law you can't outshoot. The massive heavy arm of the cactus fell from the sky and crushed David instantly. The cactus lost the gunfight, but it won the war. If you assault a plant that has survived a century in the desert, it will use its final moments to drop a house on you. And speaking of fighting for your life, our next man tried to win a legal battle by being a little too realistic. Meet Clement Vallandigham, a brilliant defense lawyer in 19th century Ohio. He was defending a man accused of murdering someone in a barroom brawl. The prosecutor claimed the defendant shot the victim. Clement, however, believed the victim had accidentally shot himself while drawing his own pistol. To prove this to the jury, Clement decided to do a live demonstration. He took a pistol, put it in his pocket, and reenacted the victim's clumsy movement. One tiny detail: the gun was loaded. Bang! Clement shot himself right in the bladder and died the next day. The silver lining. The jury realized his theory was 100% correct and acquitted the defendant. Clement won the case with his own life, a level of commitment no law firm has ever matched. But sometimes you don't need a gun to trip over your own success. Sometimes all it takes is your own face. In the 1500s, a man named Hans Steininger was a legend because his beard was nearly 5 feet long. It was his brand, his pride, his entire identity. He usually kept it safely rolled up in a small leather pouch so he wouldn't trip over it. But one day a massive fire broke out in his town. Panic hit. People were screaming and smoke was filling the air. In a desperate rush to escape his burning house, Hans ran down the stairs. In his haste, he forgot to tuck away his legendary beard. He stepped directly on his own chin hair, lost his balance, pitched forward and snapped his neck. The fire didn't touch him. His own pride did. It's a harsh reminder that the very thing that makes you famous can become the exact thing that puts you in the ground. But if you think a long beard is a weird thing to hoard, wait until you see what happens when you hoard 140 tons of junk. In 1947, New York police broke into a brownstone mansion belonging to the Collier brothers, who were notorious hoarders. They had filled their house with 140 tons of junk and old newspapers. Because they were terrified of intruders, Langley Collier had set up elaborate booby traps made of heavy junk piles throughout the hallways. Inside, police found Homer Collier dead from starvation. That Langley was missing. It took the police 3 weeks of digging through mountains of trash to find Langley's body just a few feet away. Langley was crawling through one of his secret tunnels to bring his blind brother food when he accidentally tripped one of his own booby traps. Tons of heavy newspapers collapsed on top of him, suffocating him instantly. This left his helpless brother to starve. They built a fortress to keep the world out, that only succeeded in trapping themselves inside. But at least they died at home. Our next guy died trying to prove that physics didn't apply to him. Gary Hoy was a successful corporate lawyer in Toronto. His favorite party trick was demonstrating how strong the windows of his 24th floor office were. He would tell a crowd of interns that the glass was completely unbreakable. Then he would take a running start and slam his entire body weight against the window. He had done this dozens of times. The glass always held. Until one July afternoon in 1993, Gary took his running start, slammed into the glass, and the glass didn't break. The glass held perfectly, but the entire window frame popped out of the wall. Gary still pressed against the unbroken glass, plunged 24 floors to the pavement below. He proved his point, but there's a massive difference between a window being unbreakable and a window being secure. It's a classic case of knowing the data but ignoring the context. Kind of like entering a contest without knowing basic biology. In 2007, a California radio station launched a contest called Hold Your Wii for a Wii. The prize was a Nintendo Wii, the hottest Christmas toy at the time. The rules: drink as much water as possible every 15 minutes without going to the bathroom. Jennifer Strange, a mother of 3, wanted that console for her kids. She stayed in the contest for hours, drinking nearly 2 gallons of water. But she was suffering from water intoxication. When you drink that much water without releasing it, the sodium levels in your blood drop to dangerously low levels. Your cells begin to swell, including your brain.
Jennifer went home, developed a massive headache, and died a few hours later.
A harmless radio stunt, and a mother trying to do something nice for her kids turned into a fatal tragedy. All of this because of a complete lack of biological awareness. But as tragic as that is, nothing tops the pure irony of our #1 spot. If you are afraid of drowning, the safest place you could possibly be is a pool party surrounded by over 100 certified professional lifeguards. Right. That is exactly what Jerome Moody thought when he attended a party at a New Orleans public pool in 1985.
The party was held to celebrate a historic milestone.
The city's public pools had just finished an entire summer season with exactly 0 drownings. Everyone was celebrating. There were 4 lifeguards on active duty patrolling the pool, and 100 other lifeguards partying around it. Yet when the party ended, they found Jerome Moody's body at the bottom of the deep end. He had drowned in plain sight. How? Because when everyone is a lifeguard, nobody is looking. Everyone assumed someone else was watching the water. It was the ultimate bystander effect happening at the exact moment they were celebrating their own safety record. The universe has a very dark, very twisted sense of humor. We spend our lives trying to control everything, building safer cars, better tech, and smarter security. But these stories show us the ultimate truth: you cannot outsmart fate. The world isn't out to get you, but it certainly isn't paying attention to your plans either. So maybe stop stressing about the giant meteors and just make sure your window frames are secure. If you want to keep exploring the weirdest, darkest realities of history, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.